Hello and welcome inside the Parc Fermé for podcast number 818. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now!
A.K.A. Negative Camper. You know why I've asked you here.
You must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
That's exactly what I need you to do. Tonight, for your kind consideration, we're going to cover some Formula One news. And boy, was there Formula One news this week. Before getting into that, I have to introduce my guest tonight, my co-host, which means I got to go all the way to the right coast. This would be my right hand over that way. Right coast of our nation. Nestled in our nation's capital, she applies her skills as master statistician and just all-around genius in the swamp that is Washington, D.C., or its metro area. You know her, you love her, the lovely, the redoubtable Grace! Grace, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, Todd. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. What kind of wine are you drinking tonight? I saw you had a nice glass of wine there. Is it Argentinian? What is that?
It's a Pinot Noir from Sonoma.
Nice. What kind of Pinot?
What did I open? I think it's from Imagery is where I open it from. I don't remember. I
gotta be honest. Paul, being the wonderfully kind person that he is over the holidays, sent me a bottle from Sterling.
Yes, excellent choice.
It was really good. It was a cab. It was really, really good. Yeah. So big thank you to Paul Charsley. Just when you all think he's a ruthless British race car driver, which he is, he's actually a very, very just a sweet guy. Sweet guy. He is. He's capable of putting you in the fence and sending you a bottle of wine. So he's a sweet guy, that Paul. So anyway, Grace, go ahead.
I was just going to say, before you start getting in the news, you all may remember last podcast where I mocked my husband for having the black lung. Apparently, he's given me the black lung this week. So I apologize in advance if, I sound a little not great. I feel fine, but, it always hangs right here and it sounds lovely. And also, if you see me slide off camera, it's because I really feel like, the YouTube viewers don't need to see me. So I will do my best to keep it professional.
Flip. You don't kiss your wife on the mouth when you got the black lung.
No, I mean it was just funny that I was just like, oh, I guess
I'll teach you to share those
karma,
toothbrushes.
Right?
Oh, I guess.
Oh, that is disgusting.
Sharing those toothbrushes get you nowhere, Grace.
That is always disgusting.
That's not good. Oh,
I don't even like sharing his glass. This is a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Not sickness at all. Like, ugh, it's weird.
It is. It's one of those things like human idiosyncrasies, right? It's one of those things like, some people don't have a problem. Like my youngest daughter, she's eat ice cream here, got it, got the spoon, it doesn't bother her, no big deal. And then my other daughter's like, oh no, you ate in that. No, it's like,
I'm good, thanks. Yeah,
it's funny.
No, I definitely have had that. Like, we'll be at like a friend's house or something, like serving dinner, and they'll go to pick up both of our like water glasses or whatever. I'm like, can you remember which one was mine? I know that I kissed his face, but I really would like my glass back.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's funny. Well, there was big news this week.
Woo!
Grace.
Before we did the podcast and not after. I was so
not
excited.
After,
that was like
I know.
My first announcement was not, oh my God, look at this news. It was like, oh my God, look at this news, and we haven't done the podcast yet. How exciting!
I know. We always do the podcast, and then like the following day,
the next morning,
it was we were talking about.
It's the coast.
That's weird.
It's the curse of Bonato.
Yeah, it is. It is. So yes, big breaking news. It's big breaking news. So big news out of the Williams camp this week. They have apparently hired James Vowles, the strategist at Mercedes. James Vowles, James Vowles.
James
Yes, just come in.
Whose ships just come in?
Provided he has enough brains to climb aboard.
Yeah, and he does have enough brains to climb aboard. So it's James Vowles.
Of Valtteri, it's James fame.
Yes, it's so James is now going to be the team boss at Williams, and I think that is a good move on Williams' part. If memory serves correctly, I think James has been in F1 since around 2010-ish. He was a key strategist for the team, ultimately a very important weapon in Toto's arsenal there for several years. What didn't perhaps work well with Jost Capito is maybe, and this is total conjecture, but Jost was an outsider, right? He was from a different series. He came in, some things gelled, maybe some things didn't. Whereas James, clearly won't suffer that sort of outsider thing. He's been there. He knows where all the bodies are buried. He's probably put a few of them there himself. So he knows all of that. Now, Grace, you'll enjoy this just as a trip back to James's past. James started his F1 career at British American Racing F1, or as Grace likes to call it, BARF 1.
BARF 1, the best team name ever.
BARF 1, the Honda team back in the day with Jensen Button driving for BARF 1. And he was a race engineer back then. Then he moved to become a race strategist. And then you'll recall that BARF 1, Honda, just out of nowhere decided they're going to leave F1, and so they sold it for £1, the team, to Ross Brawn. It became Brawn GP. They won the World Championship in 2009, which Grace likes to point out is an asterisk.
It sure is.
And so they won that, and then you'll recall that Mercedes bought Brawn. And so James has been here all these years. And, the other thing that James has seen is massive regulation changes in those years. Customer engine programs, how they make money, key tactical and strategic elements to a team, to the car, and a race weekend. Really, he's pretty much seen a lot of it. So, kind of a key element, certainly, or at least that's the presumption you would assume. Here's what James had to say, quote, "The team is an icon of our sport, one I greatly respect, and I am very much looking forward to the challenge," said James. Mercedes, quote, "Mercedes have been hugely supportive on my journey, and we part on excellent terms after over 20 years of working in Brackley. I am grateful for everything Toto and the team have provided, and it has been such a special experience to journey together through failure and success. Williams Racing have placed their faith and trust in me, and I will do the same in return. Williams has tremendous potential, and our journey together starts in a matter of weeks." Well, number one, Grace, I'm glad that he left on good terms with Toto Wolff, because
yeah, I like that Williams has nowhere up to go. They have nowhere to go but up, right?
yeah.
You're last.
Yeah, they got a lot of potential, because you're at the back.
You're
right?
last. What else do you have, right? They do. That is the nicest. That's nice. That's not what you want to hear after a date. Well, he has some potential. That's not great. But they do have a lot of potential because they're last.
Yeah, that's true. It's like when you met Flip, you didn't go and tell your buddies, he's got potential. He might turn into something. I don't know.
No, but people did think I was dating two people at once. That was great.
Oh,
because Flip isn't his government name, and so people were confused. Flip and Charles, same person, not two different people.
Yeah, that's true.
There you go. Fun fact. That's off-season fun fact for you, right? I was not dating two people at the same time. It was just one person with two names.
That's right. I think you'd have to look far and wide, honestly, to find a person with the layers of wisdom and craft to hire a better replacement, to be honest with you.
Right.
But the biggest issue we on the outside don't get to see or know is the issue of leadership, right? So I know he's done a lot of that, but is James a good people leader, right? That'll be one of the big tasks. I'd have to think, clearly the answer would be yes on that, but it is always a thing, it's about how they lead, motivate a group of people. Markedly different is the team leadership and people leadership skills of, say, Mattia Binotto and Gunther Steiner, right? Markedly.
I was just going to say, Gunther Steiner probably also thinks he has people skills, right?
Yeah. I have people skills, damn it. Well, sometimes. So you take the facts to the customers. So anyway, yeah, I would
It's
have
a jump to conclusions, Matt.
yeah. Right. He made $1 million. So now, despite a nice supportive response from Toto, this leaves a bit of a hole in
Sure.
race management team, and he's already had several poached from the engine department. And at first I was thinking, all right, so how much more bleeding can Toto and the team take? That's a difficult issue to overcome, and they have a lot of work to do. But here's the thing. I was reading another article by the irrefutable Mr. Jonathan Noble over at Motorsport,
We're friends.
which, yeah, Jonathan and I are like
Friend of the
this
show. We're good.
all the time. I'm always buying him a beer, Jonathan,
Totally.
we're buds. No, I never met Jonathan.
know,
I'm
but
sure
yeah.
he's a sweet guy. Anyway, I was reading an article by him, and it stated that the team weren't actually looking for a direct replacement. You see, it seems that the team already moved James out of that strategy role last summer. And says, like last summer. And Noble says it was to provide other tasks to further James's career development and advancement.
Right.
Now, I've been doing this a long time. I've sailed around the horn once or twice.
Yeah.
Not quite sure about that one, but I'll go to the wall with it. Okay. But that may be perfectly true. But I recall there being some strategy bungles last year that created a lot of pressure within the team. And even Lewis was particularly critical of some of the strategy about that time. So I'm kind of curious, were you saying, hey, you know what? James Vowles has already done everything he can do in strategy. He knows it all. Let's take him out of that role. And they moved him into, what did they move him into? The junior program, the junior driver program, and driver contracts role. And there's a part of me that thinks this could be a career development move, as suggested, but it also seems slightly off to me. I don't know. Your thoughts?
I was going to say it's like Mattia Binotto, right? Like, well, was he fired or did he leave, right? Or, I guess we always joke of the like, oh, I'm leaving to spend more time with my family. That often means you're not. You were forced out. And that's the only thing you could come up with that sounded plausible because you're not going on to do something else because you weren't prepared for this, right? So it could be either that he didn't fit with the group, was not making good decisions, and so they just were like, we're going to put you over here in charge of this thing. I think that hopefully I guess it could also be a bit of both. They could have recognized that maybe this isn't the place for you, and this place over here, we need somebody, and you'd be a better fit for it. I mean, maybe that's the best outcome if he was not really fitting. I mean, that's what all of us would want from our managers, right? Like, I think we all end up sometimes on projects and you just go, yo, I'm in over my head. I just want you to know that. And I can learn things, but I'm also going to make more mistakes. Or if I have to do this quickly, that's just not going to happen. So either, I need more mentoring, more training, or I need to be doing something else because this just isn't working. So in that sense, people management is people management. So I think the best outcome was maybe it wasn't working for whatever reason, and they just found some other place where they needed.
Well, maybe the answer is that regardless of my tinfoil hat conspiracies, Toto says that they've got 9 people in the strategy group, and they've been doing just fine last year, and most of them were doing most of the heavy lifting. He was just observing the strategy thing. So, maybe to Toto's point, maybe they've already schooled and coached up a strategy staff, and really James kind of became redundant at that point, and they moved into a different role to see more of a team's operation that would develop him and get him ready for a team boss role. If that would happen to come along, nod, nod, wink, wink.
I'm just saying those guys, I know them. Yeah, right. No, I think too. I mean, he definitely has been more of a like Toto sidekick. And it also makes sense that they have more than one person doing the strategy. Like, I think as a fan, we like the idea of the like, it's just one strategy dictator sitting there and is like, no, do this, no, do this. It's not. It's really several people looking at data, making decisions together, making them in the moment. It probably all the teams, I would imagine it isn't just like one person on the pit wall going, come in, stay out,
Right.
It's never, it's very complex. Even just from playing F1 Manager, it's very complex, and it would take more than just one person especially something moving, in real time like that, right? There's no timeouts, there's no commercial breaks, right? It's always going. You would need more than one person. There's just no way I think one person could really keep up with it and make good strategies on this level.
Yeah, I agree. It'd be very tough. And it's like I said, I'm not trying to make a conspiracy theory. I think James is very well liked, very well respected at Mercedes. There were some comments about from fans, though, thinking, wait a minute, what's this? Is this going to be now Mercedes is going to be, because this was Toto's old team, right? He owned a big chunk of this team, and his own wife was a reserve driver for Williams at one point, right? So he's got close ties there, and they're thinking, okay, so this is what Mercedes' version of AlphaTauri. This is going to be their new junior. Now, James says he isn't going to turn Williams into a mini Mercedes operation. But he did leave the door open saying, quote, it doesn't mean that Mercedes and ourselves won't be collaborating in some form or another. It was collaborating before I joined. But I have to do what is best for Williams and from now onwards, end quote.
I think, yeah, they're just going to move into the backyard a la, Haas and Ferrari. We just share a yard, but we're totally different headquarters. I don't know why you people are so critical of this. And I do think the other thing is that Williams isn't Mercedes competition. And so in that sense, James Vowles, yes, it leaves a hole at Mercedes, but it's not like he went to Ferrari or McLaren or Red Bull. That would be a very different story. This is, you're going to a team that, we lap, right? That you're at the back of the field. And on your best season, Williams, you'll maybe hope to be mid-pack. You'll never be up with Mercedes, right? Unless Mercedes falls back with you. So I think in that sense, it's also different that it's not their competition. Unlike all the people that Red Bull have stolen from Mercedes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's interesting because now Williams, Ferrari, Sauber, and McLaren all start the new season with new team bosses. And the big question is who's going to get it right and who won't, right? Who's going to fall short? Which, you're over there, hey, McLaren, Andrea Stoll, that's great. Everybody's, hey, James Vowles, that's great. Oh, Sauber's getting, Andrea Seidel. Oh, that's awesome. And here I am over here with Ferrari going, I don't know. Should I feel confident? I was like,
I think if you still had Binotto, you still would be feeling that way. I think it's like a New Yorker. That's just your way.
Oh my god!
As a Ferrari fan, like
over here panic that Fred's going to drop the ball.
I don't know. I just think that's such I don't know. There's a part of me that 10 years from now or whatever, we'll like to look back on this history with some popcorn. Like, this is going to be fun. Maybe not living through it, and especially not as a Ferrari fan living through it, but and with some hindsight, it'll be interesting to see what Fred does and how that works, because it could just be oil and vinegar, but
he might go in and just look at that whole team and go like, what the hell? What the hell?
It's a shit box. I don't,
Well, he could go.
It's a shit box.
Yeah, he might. He might.
That I think is more Fred's speed. I could just totally
it would be.
I just think him like he's Mo, and he's just clanking all these heads together, right?
Then they come in and say, well, Fred, we're Ferrari and we're doing it all this way. And he says,
well, Lottie frickin' God!
Right? He says, this is Fred's way.
They're all going to be living in a van by the river, right?
Yeah,
so I think it'll be interesting to see. That's the manager, which is why you're the most nervous, right? That's the one I think is. I would also feel the most nervous about.
Yeah.
Or I'm the most ooh, let's watch. Let's get some popcorn. I can't wait. I hope Drive to Survive just lives at Fred's house. Just follow him around. I just really want to see how that's gonna work out. Really
Fred in his office, and he's got a extra small Ferrari polo shirt on, and his pants on. And he's got a microwave in there, heating up some hot pockets, trying to figure out Ferrari's strategy. I don't know. I hope it isn't like that. I hope
with strings, right? Like
right.
like
She's
Charlie.
got strings.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I'm worried.
I do.
Out of all those, I'm with you, Grace. At Williams, Ferrari, Sauber, and McLaren, all new team buses. The one I'm worried about, clearly as a Ferrari fan, is Ferrari.
Yeah, but I think even not as a Ferrari fan, that's the one I have. I mean, it's Ferrari, man.
Yeah, I know.
And
my second worry would be McLaren, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna, again, like a preseason Washington football fan. It's great. It's preseason. It's great. Everything's great. This is the year we're going to the Super Bowl. It's great. It's the Flames, right? It's the dog on fire. This is fine. It's great.
Lando 23.
Yeah, exactly. Year of the Lando. Yeah. I do think it's interesting that I hope Mercedes, a dominant car, can hide a lot of ills. I don't know. Like, you can have a lot of issues within your team that aren't noticeable, or you're just like, it's good enough because you're dominant and you're winning. And so I wonder if Mercedes is now having to pay more attention to that, because they can't just hide, is the wrong word, but hide behind a dominant car. They can't afford long pit stops. They can't afford little mistakes. That's all the difference. Whereas when you're dominant, that tire gun kind of stuck. It's all right. We're still in the lead because we were in the lead by like 20 car lengths. And so we didn't really lose anything. So I do think that part of Mercedes, to see, if they kind of keep clarifying things. And I mean, I think Seidel did that really well for McLaren, which is why I'm sad to see him go. I think Seidel really was able to come in and kind of go, all right, guys, this needs to be worked on. This box over here we need to fix. And it takes time for that to happen. It takes 2 or 3 years for that kind of change to happen. So I don't know, watch this space to see what Mercedes kind of does with their personnel. And if we start to see faster pit stops from them, or more leadership changes, or happier drivers, right? These kind of things. Because you don't worry about when you're flush with cash, you don't worry about those things, right? When you're winning all the races, those things don't matter. But now all of a sudden you're not. You won nothing. So on. So, they gotta focus.
That's true. It's like one of those things. It's like you said, it's almost like revenue generation. So when you're a dominant car, you're generating points, and you've got those points. So your top line sales, or at least revenue generating of a lot of points, so you can afford to miss a few or lose a few, those kind of things. But that's only when you're sharp into the grid. But it's tough.
Yeah, when you're pinching pennies, you worry about that. Like, I got to get these things. So
exactly.
These things matter.
So speaking of Herr Seidel.
That's right.
So we announced that Audi and Sauber, we announced that deal that is supposed to come to fruition in 2026 with the new engine regulations. Our very own Paul mentioned Alan McNish, and it's understandable. Both Paul and I know Alan, and we've interviewed him several times. He's a very, very sharp cookie indeed. Great guy, great interview. But he happens to also be Audi's director of motorsport coordination now in his retirement. And here's what Alan had to say about Audi's plans with Sauber and Formula One. He said, quote, "It is definitely exciting. Everybody is buzzed about it. But at the same time, there is a lot of work to be done between now and the real buzz, which is the first race. And little known fact that Audi is breaking ground in December on a 3,000 square meter building in Nuremberg, Germany, that will house the engine program and testing facility for the F1 program. So there you have that. A little nugget I didn't know about.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, so Audi, pretty excited. They're going to be building a 3,000 square meter plant or building that will house the engine program testing facility, and then that's all on top of their program in Hinwil that Sauber owns or has. And it'll be interesting to see if Alan has any role in that program. They've got Seidel as the team boss. It'd be interesting to see how close Alan is or isn't to that program.
Oh, I would.
Yeah, I would too. Yeah.
Even just like like Nicky Lauda, wasn't he like emeritus or something, like some title, like just,
Yeah.
I don't want to actually do anything. I just like to show up, tell y'all what to do, and then I'm out, right? I'm just here for the lunch. So I think that'd be great. I just would like show up and check things out and claim, well, I am Audi's director and motorsports coordinator. So
yeah,
here I am. I heard you guys have a good buffet. Plus, I like that Alan McNish, actual friend of the show, as opposed to most of the times when I claim people are friends of the show, and who knows? Although Stefano Domenicali definitely is a friend of the show. He definitely steals our ideas.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
And you remember, if you're a longtime listener, you remember when we were called a different name, and the beginning of all our podcasts had like Alan say, "Hi, this is Alan McNish, and you're listening to," and then it would have Steve Matchett, David Hobbs. We had those bumpers at the beginning of all our podcasts. And so anyway, Alan's a great guy. I was at Petite one year, and there was a scrum of journalists, and we were up at the Audi sort of hospitality area with the motorhomes and all that. And we went into the tents, and they had the Audi team there, and the engineers there, the head of Audi, Dr. Ulrich at the time, Team Yost. It was really cool time. And then Alan was in there. He's a driver at the time. And so there was kind of like getting close towards the end of the hospitality session or whatever, and I was waiting and in a queue, basically not standing but waiting my turn to interview Alan, and it got close down to the end, and the PR people came out and said, "All right, well, that's all the time." And Alan said, "Well, wait a minute, I haven't talked to him." And I said, "Oh, well, no, if you're out of town." He goes, "Nonsense. No." He goes, "Yeah, you're great to talk to." And he said, "No," he said, "BS, come with me." And he and I, we went into the motorhome completely away from everyone else, sat there for half an hour, 45 minutes, and just chatted. That's the kind of guy that Alan is. So super cool guy. And I hope he is kind of involved, even if in, maybe not primary, secondary, but maybe tertiary, just to kind of be around F1 and to get his thoughts.
Best way to be involved?
Yeah, I would think so. Not in the direct firing line.
No, right? You guys do that stuff.
If it doesn't work, you can say, "Yeah, I kind of told you probably shouldn't have done it that way."
Yeah, I don't know. I just think go to the ribbon cuttings, get the big gold scissors, do all that stuff is great. Don't let somebody else. I mean, I guess it just like my plate is full. I'm already the director of motorsports coordinator.
Right.
Like I already got enough. I don't need more stuff. I just want to shake hands and kiss babies and
be close enough to the program that you get all the program's cool kit, but that's it. Yeah.
Exactly. I don't want to have to actually make more decisions. My plate's full. I'm good.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's see what else happened this week. Well, this week, everyone's favorite FIA president, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, or as we like to call him, Eddie Everywhere, maybe he should have a new nickname like Grand Moff Ben Sulayem, is what I'm thinking. I think that would be a good nickname. You see, he feels the way that they handled the Red Bull cost cap issue was perfect and a real deterrent for other teams who may be interested in cover-ups and abuse of the cost cap regulations. Here's what he had to say. MBS said this, quote, "It's not an easy task to do equivalent of technology or the balance of performance. The one thing I can say, and I can see that it's working." The one thing I can say, and I can see is that it's working, and we have to police it, is the cost cap. I was very clear with what happened with Red Bull and Aston Martin. We made sure that nothing was hidden, and we were very transparent. We did the team investigation, did the checkup, went through the whole process, and we cleared it publicly to everyone. I hope nobody can use the cost cap and try to cover up things. The teams now are very clear that the FIA is there as the governing body, that they are there watching, and that is our beauty. That is our responsibility, end quote. So.
All right. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's again. He went very successfully graduated from the Ron Dennis School of how to say 700 words when 3 would have been enough.
Nice, Ron.
I know. It's all right. Well, then he goes on a bit of a full-throated endorsement of Lawrence Stroll's investment in Aston Martin and how the team should be winning in F1 very soon. So big fan of Lawrence. Which brings up the question about capital improvements being outside the cost cap. The reason I said Grand Moff Ben Sulayem was the header for this was fear will keep the local systems in line. Fear of this battle station, right? So any of you Star Wars geeks will get the reference. And so he's like, don't worry, Grand Moff Ben Sulayem is on the case. The FIA have now direct control over the team budgets. Fear will keep the local teams in line. Fear of this FIA organization. So
that's right.
That's sort of the implication. But what it did bring up a good question. So the question is about capital improvements being outside of the cost cap regulation. If Lawrence can invest $1 billion in an entire operation, wind tunnel, infrastructure, and all that, then what he spends on creating the car, his engine supply and listed parts as well as chassis, is one thing. But a team like Williams won't be able to compete.
Never. Right.
And this brings up the interesting thought about the efficacy of the cost cap, because I'd say that the larger the operation, the easier it is to control your cost and production, et cetera. So what's covered and what's not? And
so basically,
go ahead.
Williams' GoFundMe page is never going to be able to produce as much money as Lawrence Stroll is what this is.
Right.
They just can't. And literally, Aston Martin is building a whole new huge facility.
Yeah.
I watched, I don't know why I watched a YouTube video. It was actually kind of interesting, but the guy just is like, because it's all just, the framing at, in the video. And he's just like, and over here will be this thing. And over here will be this thing. And here, and you're just like, holy cow, this campus is ginormous. And Williams again, their GoFundMe page is never going to produce that much money to be able to build all that, let alone, I mock, Red Bull in their, Cold War era, wind tunnel, from Fred Flintstone built it. And I make fun of that because it was a ludicrous thing to say. But I mean, there's some validity to the fact that, everybody else is working with older facilities or can only put costs and, can only build certain things. And then you have somebody like Lawrence who can just come in and go, I built the whole thing, house of cards, done.
Yeah, he's just like, dink. Yeah. And he's going to build, there's no doubt about it. He's going to build a world-class facility.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it looks terrific. And more power to Aston Martin. I'm excited for him. I think that's
maybe they'll win something.
Yeah, and they should. That should be the trajectory, right?
You would hope.
That's what. Yeah.
Again, just it's the curse of Force India, right? Like you're always on the cusp. Like maybe this will finally be the year that you're like, get over the cusp.
I know. It's just right there.
So close.
What it takes to get to the top 3 and on that podium is one thing, but what it takes to win, you're talking about fractions of seconds, which take millions of dollars to produce. But it doesn't bring up that. So I just thought it'd be fun to revisit this. So what's covered and what's not in the cost cap, just as a quick reminder, any expenditure related to the car, but not engines, performance is relevant for the cost cap, right? So this includes all parts on the car, from the steering wheel to the wheel nuts, all the elements needed to run the car, most of the team personnel, garage equipment, spares, transport costs, and everything in between. That's in the cost cap budget. All right. Now, there are several big ticket things that aren't covered by the cost cap, and those include driver salaries, the wages of the 3 highest paid staff members, travel costs, marketing spend, that's huge, property and legal costs, so none of that CapEx, entry and license fees, any non-F1 or road car activities. Okay. Parental and sick leave payments for staff, employee bonuses and staff medical benefits. Those aren't included either. And engines, which are a lot more complex because some of the teams make their own while others buy them, are covered by their own set of cost regulations. All right.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. So that's just a brief reminder of what's included in the cost cap, what's not, and you can start to see where teams like Lawrence, and I'm not picking on Lawrence because he's building a great operation, a great facility. He's all in, and I think that's great. That's what Formula One needs. His level investment, is far beyond what you have seen from Haas, or maybe even what you'd potentially see from Andretti if he got in. So I think you have to take a moment back and applaud Lawrence for his commitment and investment in Formula One. It's huge.
I think it's what we want. We often talk about how Renault, Alpine are never full send. Well,
Yeah.
Lawrence is full in. Larry is in this all the way. So I think, to me, whenever we hear about Aston Martin, I was like, oh yeah, Alpine, are you paying attention? Like, this is what you're supposed. This is how a team works. This is what you're supposed to be doing, right? So I think it'll be interesting to see, especially if they do pass Alpine consistently. Oh boy, that's gonna be. Oh, heads are gonna be rolling. So I mean, I do like to mock Lawrence Stroll, but in this case, right on, man.
You got to take your hat off for sure.
Let's see. My cost cap hat, of course.
I have that proudly right here.
See, that's the hat you have to take off.
I have this next to this ball that Paul sent for the dogs.
Oh yeah, it's McLaren colors. Very nice.
Oh, and notice, sorry for those listeners, there's a big old gash and a bunch of foam missing from.
I'm surprised the noisemaker is still in it. Usually that's the first thing to go.
That's what they go after. They want to get the little noisemaker.
Yeah.
So I have 2 Australian Shepherds, and they were, if anyone that has Aussies knows, they're, you talk about, big time chewers, boy, they can chew through anything. Let's see. In other news, so we talked about Ross Brawn retiring from Formula One. Remember what he said?
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
If you're missing that reference, there was a quote a year or 2 ago from him where he pretty much said exactly that same thing.
Yeah. I can't. Yeah. Too much is happening. I need to go fishing.
Yeah.
Right.
So he retired. So you remember, he and Pat Symonds were supposed to be the guys, the architects, if you will, of these regulations that came out in 2022. And once they got to that point and those regulations were released and they kind of went through that season to make sure they got bedded in, then Ross and Pat were going to retire and walk away. Not so fast.
No.
While Ross may be sitting out.
Finally, yeah.
Right. He may be out there, sitting around doing, reading. I don't know what he's doing.
Until the bat, the bat light goes off, right? The bat signal. And they need, and Dominicali's like, Ross, come back. I need help.
Right.
Grab Gene.
Right now he's got a pair of waders on, standing out, in the rain, fly fishing, apparently. And that's what he's doing. Now, he said it and he's done it. But not Pat. Despite he and Ross planning to retire at the end of 22, it seems Pat Symonds is going to be around a while longer. That's right. The dynamic duo were going to retire, and he's not. Yep. All right? So here's what Pat had to say about it. He can't leave. Effectively, F1 won't let him leave. He's trapped. It's like Hotel California.
Yeah, right?
Oh,
my goodness.
Yeah. So he said, quote, I had a plan to retire last summer. I actually handed in my year's notice. You have to think about these things. My notice was accepted. And then Stefano, F1 CEO and president, got to hear about it. And he was like, no, I don't think this is a good idea. So I'm still here, still doing it. And I still will be for a good while yet.
That's not how this works. Just don't go.
Yeah.
Just don't. What are they going to do? Or just be like the petulant teenager. Yeah. You need that? Sure.
Yeah. Right.
What? Okay. Sure. Just like one word answers. Eventually, Dominicali will be like, we're done. Right. Like, the worst is to work with somebody who does not want to be on this project or does not want to be in this. Just let him go. I mean, we've talked about like with Seidel, like, what would, Zach Brown can't be like, no, you have to stay. That's terrible. You have to let him go, right? Like, what is he going to do? Fine.
I think he should stay, and like all of his emails should start off with AITA.
Yeah.
It's what? Just
either that or just
petulant.
bore people. Just be really, everything becomes really long-winded.
Right.
So that they eventually
like the uncle from Dairy Girls.
I was just gonna say that. Like if you've seen Dairy Girls, be the uncle from Dairy Girls. Just keep it going for as long as possible. And that I actually think that should be Pat's strategy. Be that guy, and eventually they'll just be like, here, go.
Yeah.
But he has to give a year's notice. I get it that it can't be like whatever 4 weeks or whatever I'm supposed to give, but like a year. I don't know what I'm doing a year from now. Good Lord.
Here's the thing for those newer to Formula One. This is what I do think that's interesting about this. It's interesting to know that the guy who was actually banned from Formula One for cheating is now an indispensable member of the F1 management team. How's that for redemption?
That's so F1. Just like I was talking about, like that's so Ferrari. Like, that's so F1.
It's
I
so
love
F1.
it. Maybe what Dominicali said, I saw your 1 year and I've dialed all but the last number of the local police department. Right. Would you like to stay for another year, or would you like me to finish that last, like 9-1? Do you want me to dial that last one, or are you going to stay for another year? I don't know. Like
maybe he heard about it and he said, I don't think it's a good idea. Meaning, I don't think it's a good idea to give us like a 4-week notice. He needs to go now. Pack his box. It's Friday. We find that it's best to do these kind of things on Friday.
That's right. I wouldn't say I missed the work.
Yeah, right.
His meeting with the Bobs.
With the Bobs. Oh, with the Bobs. You're having a meeting with the Bobs.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think I'm gonna go with the blackmail route. I think that to me is the best drama. Is he's just like, well, I have this manila envelope with some photos and some paperwork in it, and I can push it back into my desk and lock it again, or you can go. You decide.
Yeah, I like it. So anyway, you thought it was going to be easy to get rid of Pat Symonds. It's not.
Apparently
He's going to be around for a while.
Apparently doing illegal shit wasn't enough to get rid of him.
Cheating
right?
wasn't enough. You got to do more than just cheat and have a purpose. Crashgate.
Right.
Got to do more
good
than
on
that.
You, Formula One. I just think, that's right. I was once banned, and now I can't get out.
Now I'm back. Yeah. What a difference, because Flavio Briatore still hasn't been able to claw his way back in there.
But I think Flavio kind of likes it this way.
Yeah, I think you're right.
He just kind of likes coming in, shaking Alonso's hand, stirring it up, and then leaving. And it's kind of like what I'm saying for Alan McNish. Just come, shake some hands, and then leave. You don't have to get involved.
Exactly. There you go. All right, let's do some Albin's Cat, shall we? Why not? Seems like time.
Get down. It's an Lewis. You like my face? You like it?
I do, Sergio. All right, hit us with some Albin's Cat stories.
All right, so I just wanted to plug some stuff because it's that time of the year. There's not a lot of news going on out there. And I did want to say that I came across, my headphones are weird. Anyway, sorry. Anybody that's watching this is just like, stop touching your headphones so much. Anyway, this YouTube video, I've never watched any of their other content. I'm not even sure how Flip found this video, but he's called JEMM on cars, JM on cars. So anyway, he did this piece on the MP44, right? Which is the, Senna Prost 1988, totally dominant 14 out of 15 races, wins, So to me, it's like, if you ask, Anna Rack, you ask a Sebastian, but what are your 5 favorite cars? MP44 is one of them, right? This is sort of like historical, a lot of things, the tech turned on that car. And so anyway, so what they do is he gets Steve Nichols, who's the chief designer, Matthew Jeffries, who's the monocoque and front suspension dude, and Neil Trundle, who's the chief mechanic in 88 and 89. And it's like an hour and a half long video. So I watched it in several chunks, but they not only like talk about the car and, if we talk about Ron Dennis all the time. If you're why do they talk about Ron Dennis? I'm like, I think their stories, of course, give you a great image of Ron Dennis, right? They really kind of, because they worked with them, right? So they tell these great Ron Dennis stories, but then they actually like take the monocoque off and they talk through the different components of the car and how they were built and, you know, what they did then and what you could do now. They like show you how the steering wheel works. It was just like every nook and cranny of the MP44 that you could ever want to see is in there. And so I just thought it was just really interesting. I think if they did that kind of video with more, you know, like the Ferrari from like 04, what that really dominant when they had, you know, a Lotus, you know, you could just do this with a couple of those historic cars that really changed the way the cars were, or, you know, were a pinnacle of that, you know, a pinnacle example of that genre, that era, would be so helpful, I think, because I think a lot of times the cars are often treated like wine, like, I don't know, there's some grapes in there, I don't know, we put some wheels on it and some stuff happens, and it can feel very intimidating, right? Like I'm not a mechanic, I'm not an engineer,
right.
And so I think just the way they kind of talk through it, and again, it's like the three of them know each other, so it's kind of fun because of their camaraderie with each other, and then the stories that they tell about, you know, Senna and Prost and Ron Dennis also kind of make it go long. So I highly recommend it. He has another video with Steve Nichols that's also really interesting. I'm sure he has other stuff on his YouTube site, but that was all we watched, and I think it's great. It was kind of like the old Steve Matchett Legends that he used to do, but for cars, right? So he kind of like they just took you through that car. So a little history, interested in that. My other Albon's cat is also history related. However, you know, we can't have a whole podcast without me mentioning MotoGP. So I just wanted to put a plug. If any of you have ever been like, why does Grace go on and on about MotoGP all the time? So the race does a podcast. Their MotoGP podcast is really good. Toby Moody leads it, who's great. He used to do the
Toblerone.
Yeah, he used to do the broadcast. But you know, he's really great. And but they did one on the 990s, which was, you know, 02 to like 06. And so that was when I started watching. It was really the, you know, sort of peak MotoGP. MotoGP was really coming into its own. So I would listen to that podcast. I think they talk about, you know, to me, it was like, oh yeah, I remember that race. Oh yeah, I remember watching that. And, you know, if you have access to any of these races, or if you have MotoGP streaming service, just whatever race they mentioned, just go watch those, right? They were all the like, you know, Laguna Seca when Nikki won. It was just like all these great, I was like, oh yeah, I had these races on video, you know, VCR tape for a long time, because they were just like, you know, kids, that's what we used to have to do. It's these really great races. And they also did a podcast on Casey Stoner, which I also really enjoyed.
Oh, cool.
It would be kind of like a Michael Schumacher or something like that.
Yeah.
Just kind of a, like, I forgot a lot of those details about Casey Stoner. So I'd recommend that. If you are like, why is Grace always talking about MotoGP? Go check it out. They did a great job.
Oh, that's over the race?
Yeah, the race.
Home of Scott Mitchell mom?
Yeah. Yes. But yeah,
for years it was Scott Mitchell. I don't know why he got his name is hyphenated. I don't know the backstory to that. So
I don't know either. I you know, and for the longest time I had no idea what they look like. Like Jonathan Noble, I only know what his like little biopic looks like, you know, on his articles. Like I know, you know, so it's the same thing. Like now I would see, if I saw these guys, you know, in the pit lane or something, I don't know, I'd be like, oh, you know, that's so and so. But prior to that, if they didn't look like that little picture, I had no idea what they look like. So yeah.
All right, cool. Well, here's some Todd No Shit headlines. Are you ready for these?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. This isn't a dodgy headline so much as I didn't know it happened. So Kevin Magnussen needs surgery weeks before start of new F1 season after doctor's visit. Did you know that?
Well, no. What kind of surgery?
Well,
I'm not going to the doctor anymore. What?
I know. I was like, oh my gosh,
alarming.
what kind of surgery? Apparently, he has a cyst in his wrist that he has to get out. He was having pain in his wrist, and so he has to have that removed. So that'll do it. So not to worry. I thought it was like, you know, that headline. It was like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with Kevin? You know,
I know
worried.
It sounds very like like it's cancer or something. Like that's a very alarming headline.
I could have said Kevin Magnussen will have minor surgery weeks.
Yeah, right.
Whatever,
like,
you know.
don't panic.
Oh my gosh, were they removing his leg? What are they doing?
No, my goodness.
No? Oh my gosh, Kevin, no! So anyway, there's that. The next one, quote, fans convinced Lewis Hamilton is dating stunning Kanye West, busty ex-Juliana Nalu, or Nalu, however you pronounce it, after hot tub snap emerges.
I don't even know where to begin?
I don't. Let me ask a question. So it's a legit question because I'm not the target audience for this. Clearly,
Me neither.
and maybe it's because I'm old. Does anybody really give a damn? Why do people care about stuff like that?
Oh, people care.
I know, but I don't know.
Not
why.
me, but I'm like, People Magazine exists for a reason.
I know. I don't know. So do I care who Lewis is in a hot tub with?
I think the
couldn't care
only
less.
person, I'm going to put this out there, the only person I care that they're in a hot tub with is my husband. Like, woohoo,
Yeah,
I don't care who these other,
I don't
and
care.
then it's only marginal. Like, if it was, somebody, I'm like, why didn't you invite me? How
Yeah.
dare you be in a hot tub with Lewis Hamilton? You didn't think you should call me, right? Like,
Yeah. But Lewis, for the record, if you're listening, I couldn't care less who you hook up
know,
with. I don't
but-
care. I don't care enough.
some people do. I mean,
And I'm not picking on Lewis, any of the drivers. I really don't care.
I know,
know?
but again, I think I definitely have friends that, like, I'll talk. I'm sure you've had this, right? You talk about Formula One or something, and people are just like, "Oh, that's nice. Oh, that's great," right? Because they don't really know what you're talking about. I've definitely had friends that have been like, "Oh yeah, I've heard of that guy." I'm like, "You have? Oh yeah, because he's dating so and so." I'm like, they're like, "Oh, I didn't know who the guy was, but it's some woman of
Oh,
importance." And they're
you
like,
watch
"Oh,
Formula One, that Lewis guy? Oh, he's going out with busty ex Juliana Nalu.
Yeah, do you also
Nalu.
know that he has a lion tattoo that's eating his nipple? I mean, I don't know what
Yeah.
you want me to say.
I know.
I don't know. I've never.
Lion tattoos, nipples, busty. I mean, what's going on in this?
I
headline?
don't know, and I
Crazy.
didn't. Whatever. I just think, yeah. It's.
Do
I
you
don't
know who
it's definitely-
Juliana is?
No, I have no idea.
I don't either.
I didn't even know who Kanye West is dating. I
I
right?
thought I
Like,
saw he got married or something. I don't know.
he was married.
Was he?
Yeah.
No, he just got married.
Again?
Well, I don't know. That was the headline I saw.
Oh, after
Yeah.
Kim Kardashian, he's
Yeah.
married somebody else.
I don't know. That's what I heard. I don't know.
All right.
I don't follow up on any of them. I don't. Yeah.
I don't know.
That whole
I mean,
celebrity thing is. I'm completely bereft of that.
okay, so more off-season fun fact. I enjoy watching Divorce Court at noon when I'm eating my lunch now that I work from home mostly. And
That's
so
sad.
TMZ, I love Divorce Court. It's fine. It's great.
Be
Anyway,
careful, Flip.
he watches it with me. It's great.
Oh, so you guys are gonna know each other's secrets if you ever really get pissed off with each other.
Okay, so first of all, I'd just like to say, if Flip ever went through my phone, he'd be disappointed, right? Like,
Yeah.
really? You read this much about MotoGP? Get a life, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think he would just be disappointed. But anyway, after Divorce Court, they used to have TMZ. And so
Yeah.
the DVR rate gets like 5 minutes after or whatever. So
Yeah.
the only time I ever knew what any celebrity was doing was because the 5 minutes after Divorce Court was TMZ. And so then I'd be like,
Right.
oh, I didn't know that's what so-and-so was up to. I had no idea. I'm like, did you hear about that? Unless it's a sports person and it's covered on ESPN, and then I watch enough ESPN and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, then I knew something. But Formula One isn't covered on ESPN here, so I didn't know. I don't know who he's dating. Whatever.
Whatever.
It's
No,
not
you
my
know,
husband. I guess that's all that matters.
Lewis, you do you. Whatever.
I mean, you're single. Do what you want.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
He's
I don't
a
know.
strapping
Even
young
if-
man. You go do whatever you want to do.
Even if you were married, I guess that's between you. I mean, that's like
yeah.
that's between you and your wife. Whatever. Live your life
Whatever.
however you guys
That's-
want to.
You guys do you.
Again,
and
just drink on the first floor.
Yeah, right. Finally, the other headline is Ferrari terminate Velas Formula One sponsorship deal. Now, that's interesting because isn't that all blockchain?
Oh, is it? I have no idea. I was hoping you were going to. Well,
and they
that's-
terminated that contract early.
That's because they weren't getting any money.
Hmm.
Break out the black tape.
Yes, put that black tape over the Velas logo. So watch that space because I'm curious. Why would they terminate a sponsorship deal early?
The only reason is because they're not paying. There's no other
Either
reason.
checks aren't clearing,
Yeah.
they're not getting paid, or there's some sort of brand equity issue that they don't want to be attached to. So yeah.
Right, but do they still wear Kaspersky? I mean, I think they were already.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
Just
I don't
putting it
know.
out there.
I just think it's more the first one than the second one.
Could be. So just put it out there.
Oh, nefarious.
All right, let's do some mailbag.
You've got mail.
First up, let's see. Is this a leftover one? I think I already did this one, didn't I? Yes. I already did this question last time. Oh, but I didn't want to
yes.
mention about unlapping cars and talking about going through the safety. Yes, and thank you for the listeners and readers pointing out. The other issue, major issue that we didn't talk about was fuel. So, all of the cars that dove in would have done a lap less than all the other cars, and that's not fair either. So they would have more fuel. They could fuel their cars differently. Who knows? But anyway. So there's that.
I'm all for that strategy, though.
Yes.
Who's going to bank on that? Let's do it.
Yeah, right. Jason Wally asks, hey, Todd. Hey, Jason. With the death of Jeff Beck, man, that gutted me. And most of you all know I'm a guitar player, have been for a long time. And Jeff was just superlative. I mean, he's, if you play guitar, you'll know what I'm talking about. So, if you don't, let me try to put it in layman's language. So, as a guitar player, there are inflection points in the linear history of guitar. As it came out, and it was first just with jazz, and it was what they call jazz boxes, those kind of things, and then they needed more volume, so they amplified it, and it went through this trajectory into rock and roll and all of that good stuff. In the evolution point, there are key people that sort of, once it got to that person, it changed the complete direction of guitar, right? So you could say that with Les Paul. You could say that certainly with Jimi Hendrix, right? Changed everything. Eric Clapton, Eddie Van Halen, inflection point, changed everything. Eric Johnson, inflection point. Well, Jeff Beck was one of those. However, the interesting thing about Jeff Beck is he was a singular voice. No one played like Jeff Beck. No one. Now, you can find Stevie Ray Vaughan. I love Stevie. And you can find a lot of people that can pull off SRV licks, Hendrix licks, even play Eddie Van Halen. So very, very few can get anywhere close to Jeff's voice on a guitar. So he is sort of the guitar player's guitar hero. He is amazing. He was amazing guitar player. And I just gutted when I saw that news. So condolences to Sandra, his wife, and all the fans and family and friends of Jeff Beck. Jason said, with the death of Jeff Beck, I've been listening to his music, and I keep hearing bits that sound like they could be great for a race intro montage, especially Beck's Bolero. I agree. This has me thinking, what songs would you pair with each track as an intro theme? He said, in my own head, I can't get beyond the old BBC intro, The Chain, and the one Top Gear used, the Allman Brothers, right? You and Paul Haver seem like you'd have better taste and more knowledge and would have some great ideas. I think that's a great idea. It's something that we ought to do in the off-season, Grace, where you and Paul and I come up with what songs we'd use as the intro for each Grand Prix, right? And I think that would be a great idea. That would be a lot of fun to do. But I agree with you, Jason. I was just gutted about Jeff. He has several tracks that would be great, as you mentioned. Beck's Bolero is one of them. Suspension, obviously. Elegy for Dunkirk, Two Rivers, Pork Pie Hat, Stand on It, Savoy. Those are all really good ones too. But anyway, yeah, that's a good idea. We'll have to see if we can come up with a podcast for that. That would be kind of fun to do. And then finally, our friend Wes says, if, and that's a big if.
Because we couldn't go a whole show. This is the last point of the show. You just couldn't do it, could you?
Yeah.
I had to bring him up.
I got to bring it up. He says, if, and it's a big if, the resistance to Andretti Cadillac is only about the dilution of the prize money, then why doesn't FOM simply add to the end of the season pot?
Or take away Ferrari's special money for being Ferrari.
They're a legacy team, Grace.
Oh, I know.
They've been there since the very first Grand Prix.
They should get more money than everybody else because they're special. They're Ferrari.
They are.
I mean,
Grace, if
you
were a Ferrari fan, you would understand the pressure. You would understand.
The pressure is on them. It's self-induced. I don't think they should get paid more because they screw themselves over and over again.
Your team has a rich history of walking out of the motorhome, pulling a gun out of their holster and shooting themselves in the foot.
Oh, I agree with that 100%, but we're not paid extra money for that.
And your team, if you had some scuba gear, you might be able to dive in the bottom of Lake McLaren and find some Ferrari documents down there, too.
I'm sure. You know, I just think...
or Ron Dennis's lair.
You know, right? Like he's Batman. Right? He lives in the bottom of the lake.
Yeah.
No, I just think I think prize money is the, like, easiest solution, right? Like, or the easiest statement. Like, if somebody said, for example, people say, why don't you like Michael Andretti? Well, maybe I have a list of like 8 or 10 things. But the easiest thing to say is, well, he tried to kill me with a golf cart. That is the easiest explanation for why I don't like Michael Andretti. But it's layered, right? It's nuanced. So I think just saying, oh, we don't want to split the prize money is the easiest thing to say. And everybody goes, oh, it's all about money. It's always about money. Because that is a big part of it. But it's not the only reason. And what I really want is, I want like somebody like Roger Penske to say, "Oh, I want to get in," and have everybody go, "Oh, yeah, Captain, come on in."
The captain. Yeah,
we love you. We love you. Well, come on, we'll pay you.
Yeah.
We'll give you Ferrari's special legacy money so that you can be a part of Formula One. Roger would love that. Come on in. That's what I really want now. Like, so that it's clear that it's personally about Michael Andretti and not about money and all these other things.
That's right.
Which
just for the record,
not the only
I want everybody. I have none of these issues with Michael. I think Michael and his team is great. But
I'm a McLaren fan, so there's some deep-seated Michael Andretti hatred in there as well.
There is.
But
hey, in answer to your query, Wes, they already do. There would be a $200 million dilution fee that the team entering would be required to pay to offset the 10% that the teams would lose from their share, but that's only a one-time deal. And so the teams have issues with that, and they want that to be either more, like, $500 million or $600 million, and that would cover, 3 or 4 years until the revenue and excitement and whatever would build up. So
maybe...
so that's one of the issues.
Didn't they just all have a secret like power unit meeting that Ferrari didn't get to come to? Maybe this was what they actually discussed.
Maybe it was.
This is how we get rid of Ferrari's not here. Let's get rid of their legacy money. And we'll give it to Andretti.
Their legacy money. We'll just give Ferrari's legacy money to Andretti. We'll let him in. He'll pay $200 million, and that's fine.
It's Fred. He won't care. Fred won't care. Like, why are you getting this money, Ferrari?
Right. With all the chaos going on at Ferrari, they won't notice.
They won't notice that money, and we'll just give it to Michael, and we'll bring him in. And that's what they were actually discussing at the power unit meeting that Ferrari couldn't go to.
Oh, that's great. I love it. All right. Well, that does it for this podcast. Let us know what you think about James Vowles taking the helm of Williams. And then you can also weigh in on other stories that we mentioned about Audi's plans, the FIA's cost cap, whatever you want to talk about. You can do that in the comment section of this podcast on our website, theparcferme.com is where you do that. If you like this podcast, go over to iTunes or your podcast player and give us a good rating and give us some love. That would be much appreciated. Spread the word. Share the Parc Fermé with all of your friends. And a huge, huge thank you to our Patreon supporters, because we could not and would not do this podcast without you. So you are the only thing standing between this podcast and oblivion. So thank you to our Patreon supporters for that. Really, really, really are grateful for your support. And until next week, when we drum up more F1 news in the off season, and hopefully Grace will be back to her fighting, spirit and not under the weather. But Grace, you've done a great job tonight being under the weather.
I think I just sound bad. I feel fine, but the end of a cold can always sound terrible. Thank you.
Yeah, did great. All right, folks, until next week, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camber, saying so long, Grace.
See you next week.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.